Subscribe to Junebug Films. Here, we have a vision to create great films and independent media. We have a focus to deliver original entertainment. Also, don't forget to check out some Junebug Films merch on poppoptees.com. Thank you so much for your support. Better days are ahead.
Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. Jacob was born in 1785 and died in 1859. Wilhelm was born in 1786 and died in 1863. These men collected stories such as Snow White, Princess and the Frog, Sleeping Beauty, Little Red Riding Hood, and many others. They defined generations for these great stories, and ultimately people think that they're the ones that ultimately wrote them, but no. Many great other authors wrote them too and did the same thing that they did. Most famously, Charles Perrault and Augustus Facile, the author of the Pentamemole. But the Brothers Grimms are the ones that people remember. And the reason why they did this was to protect their heritage after Napoleon invaded Germany, to protect their heritage. And ultimately, that's what they wanted to do. Protecting their heritage when it comes to storytelling. And ultimately, they did that, but they defined an entire generation and generations of children for these stories. And originally, they put them in the original format as they were dark. And then they made different volumes that were less dark. And ultimately censoring their own work because they did not want children to read them. But they always tried to keep the moral lesson behind them. Like, did you know that Snow White, in the original story, in Children's and Household Tales, Volume 1, it was the mother who ultimately was the queen. So yes, the mother was the evil queen, not the stepmother, because stepmothers are less evil, I guess. Oh yeah, totally. But ultimately, the story that Snow White teaches us is how envy and jealousy and desire are some of the roots to all evil. And, Little Red Riding Hood, for instance, teaches us ultimately don't talk to strangers because, well, some of the original stories from Little Red Riding Hood, well, the Brothers Grimm kind of toned it down a little bit where it really was a wolf. But in some of the original stories that they might have heard or even heard from, the wolf indicates man. Never trust a wolf in sheep's clothing? Well, wolf indicated predator. And so Little Red Riding Hood, they toned it down. But these men really are some of the greatest storytellers of all time. But ultimately, they're not even really storytellers. The correct term that we could even call them is story collectors. That's what these men are. Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm, we owe a lot to them to defining even what we think of as fairy stories. Because without them, we would not have so much of our inspiration when it comes to fairy tales. And these men were ultimately one of the greatest story collectors of all time in children's and household tales. And that's what I believe that we need to owe a debt of gratitude to these brothers who devoted their life to collecting them. One of the brothers even married one of the people they heard the story from. These guys were some of the preservers of their own history. And ultimately, that's what they wanted to do with this endeavor. And I would say they succeeded. But little did they know that they impacted the entire world with their stories. I don't think they could have predicted that. They could not have predicted that at all. But ultimately, look what they did. If you like what you hear, please like, comment, and subscribe to Junebug Films and share out this video. There is plenty more of these series coming, where we're going to talk about other great story collectors of fairy tales as we embark on our endeavor to make our own version of Snow White, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So please join us as we do this. Thank you.